Hey everybody, welcome back to my coverage of the PogChamps 3 tournament. This is the third quarterfinals matchup in the Consolation bracket. Tubbo versus CodeMiko. CodeMiko, very new to chess. She didn't even know how the pieces moved before PogChamps 3. Tubbo, he's got a bit more experience. He played in PogChamps, which was a Minecraft chess tournament for Minecraft YouTubers that happened in January. And Tubbo is that rating favorite, so he is the favorite to win this matchup, but we just have to see how the players play. So let's get right into the game. Tubbo starts with e4 and CodeMiko responds with e5. We have knight f3, knight f6, and we've seen CodeMiko play the Petrov's defense before in her match, but we didn't know why until it was revealed in today's match that the reason why CodeMiko goes for this Petrov's defense, knight takes e5 and now knight takes e4, which this knight takes e4 is considered dubious, by the way. I'll show you why in a second. The reason why CodeMiko goes for this is because Cutie Cinderella, a former PogChamps competitor and also one of the commentators of today's match between CodeMiko and Tubbo, revealed that she had told CodeMiko as a piece of advice, with black, you should just copy whatever white's doing and you're good to go. This is not really the best advice, but it almost works sometimes. It didn't work out for CodeMiko really. In the group stage, we saw some competitors take advantage of this with queen to e2, but it sometimes works out, as you can see here, because Tubbo here does not play the best move, which is queen to e2, and basically the idea here is now if this knight moves, you have knight to c6, and it's a discovered check, you will win the queen as white. So here, after queen to e2, you actually have to continue copying as black. It's kind of funny. You play queen e7, and this basically saves your piece. You're only losing a pawn now after queen takes e4. You can regain your piece with d6, and this knight is pinned to the queen. So after a move like d4, d cross e5, and d cross e5, now white is only up a pawn. It's still not good for black, obviously, because you're just losing a pawn for nothing, basically. But you can still save the piece like this. But Tubbo doesn't go for this queen e2. He instead plays bishop to c4, and we have d5 from CodeMiko, which is actually the best move, just gaining a tempo on this bishop. So the bishop now has to move again. Tubbo moves the bishop to b5, which is check, and here c6 is the best move, gaining another tempo on the bishop and consolidating your center or supporting your center. But instead we have bishop d7 from CodeMiko, which is a totally fine move as well. Also, I forgot to mention, CodeMiko was actually sick while playing this match, so, and I'm not gonna lie, she actually played the best chess I've ever seen her play in this match, so congrats to her for playing really good chess for her while she was sick. So I just wanted to point that out, and give me a sec, there's this wire here. All right. Anyway, the game continued. We have bishop takes d7 check, and now not queen takes d7 from CodeMiko, but knight takes d7 because that would hang the queen. So very good from CodeMiko. We have d4 now. Tubbo defends this knight as it was attacked. Maybe not the best move. You should probably trade this knight or move it back because after knight takes e5 and d takes e5, which happened in the game, this pawn might be a little overextended and it might be a weakness later on. So you can defend it with f4, but then you're weakening your king side. So it just could be, a long-term weakness. But we have this anyway, and now bishop b4 check from CodeMiko. And now Tubbo does play c3. So, CodeMiko, when she had this chance to play c6, she didn't. But Tubbo knows what's up. He plays c3, and now the bishop moves back to a5. Both players castle, and we have bishop to f4 now, getting that last piece developed. And here, CodeMiko makes a mistake that we've seen a lot of PogChamps competitors make. She plays g5, pushing the pawns in front of her king. And yes, this does gain a tempo on the bishop, but you're creating a lot of weaknesses around your king. You just want to keep these pawns in front of your king, keep your king safe, and you're going to be good to go. So we have bishop e3 from Tubbo, and now f6 from CodeMiko. And also with this bishop e3 move, you'll notice that this black knight is trapped. So the black knight has no squares now, as this bishop has taken away this c5 square. So white here is actually threatening f3 to trap the knight. Black does need to do something about this and play a move like bishop to b6, regaining that c5 square. But instead, CodeMiko plays f6, which not only doesn't save the knight, but it also continues to weaken the king. So definitely not a good move from CodeMiko, but we'll see if Tubbo sees this f3 tactic. He does not, and he plays e6 instead, and so CodeMiko now, her knight can escape to d6, so everything will be fine. We have f5 from CodeMiko, and this is another mistake, but it's not extremely clear why. The reason is because there is this tactic that starts with e7, and this is a fork on the queen and the rook. It looks like white just loses a pawn, but this is actually a clearance tactic of some sort, because after queen takes e7, now this diagonal is cleared after queen takes d5, and it's a fork on the king and the bishop. So white will win a piece here. Though this tactic is hard to see, so it's not surprising that Tubbo played bishop d4. He did not go for this. Really here, you just got to develop your last piece, develop your queen, get your rooks to the center of the board, the half-open files, and continue like this. Like this bishop, it was fine on e3. So yeah, that would be my advice to Tubbo here. We have f4 from CodeMiko, going all in with these kingside pawns, and g3 from Tubbo, now trying to open things up. You definitely wouldn't want to take this though, because then you'd be opening up your own king. G3 here also, it just is not the best move. Once again, you can just develop here and be totally fine. You don't want to create any weaknesses in your king side that you don't have to. We do have f takes g3 though now, and h takes g3, which are both good moves. And we have now rook to e8 from CodeMiko. We have b4 from Tubbo and bishop to b6. Queen to g4, and now rook to f8. Tubbo developing that queen. Now he just needs to get his knight into the game. Here, instead of rook to f8, black actually could have gotten into a winning position with bishop takes d4. And the idea is after c takes d4, now you play queen to f6, forking the d pawn and the e pawn. So one of these pawns will be lost. And you have to be careful, because if you lose the d pawn, your rook might get trapped. Actually, the knight can come to a3, so your rook is not getting trapped, but you could lose a lot of material, potentially. So here the best move for white is queen to d1, and then black simply gains this pawn. And black's king safety is not too great, but it's going to be hard to get this knight into the game. You can't really develop it to c3, and if you developed it to e2, then the d4 pawn drops. So it's just a really tied up position to play overall as white, and so this would be definitely black's best try. But instead of this bishop takes d4, we have rook to f8 by CodeMiko, knight a3. Tubbo finally develops this knight, and now a really strange move by CodeMiko, knight takes f2. And maybe she was thinking something, I don't know how CodeMiko miscounted this, but it is easy to miscount, I guess, if you're confused about this X-ray attack or the bishop X-ray defending. This is not actually an X-ray defense, but it can get confusing. Counting is hard, people. Counting is hard. But this does hang a knight, so Tubbo does take it with rook takes f2, and now we have h5 from CodeMiko, pushing her last kingside pawn. And you don't need me to tell you what's wrong with that. We have queen takes h5 from Tubbo, and now rook takes f2 from CodeMiko. And this actually hangs mate in one. Tubbo here had queen to h8, and this would have been checkmate in one. But Tubbo simply recaptures. He plays bishop takes f2, and we have bishop takes f2 and king takes f2, some more trades. And white is still up a knight, and black's king has no defense. So white is still doing very good here. Their own king is not too safe either, but it's tricky. It's tricky. We have queen to f8 check, and now king to g2, hiding behind white's last kingside pawn, and rook to e8 from CodeMiko, getting her last piece into the game. We have rook to e1 defending the e6 pawn, and now rook to e7 from CodeMiko. Queen takes g5. This pawn was hanging for a while, and this is check. We have queen to g7, and now queen takes d5, picking up this second hanging pawn, and white is up 2 pawns and a knight now. We have c6 attacking the queen, and queen to d6, pressuring this rook here, so the queen should not leave the defense of it. We have b5 now from CodeMiko, and knight to c2. Tubbo getting his knight into the game. Queen to h6, and this does leave the defense of the rook, so white should definitely take it. However, Tubbo instead plays knight to d4. Maybe a little bit of time pressure there. He is getting under a minute, so it is understandable. Here, CodeMiko sees her rook is hanging, and she plays rook to e8, so she saves her rook, but this hangs the pawn on c6. Not really a lot you could have done about that pawn anyway, though. We have king to g7 and queen d7 check, and now this rook will be lost because the only move that defends your rook, king to f8, king to f8 defends the rook, runs into queen f7 checkmate. So this rook will be lost. CodeMiko plays rook to e7. Both players very low on time, though. Tubbo could easily flag, so Tubbo's got to get this checkmate very quickly before he flags, and CodeMiko still has chances to win here. So Tubbo definitely takes this rook, and we have king to g6 from CodeMiko, knight to e5 check from Tubbo, and king to h5, queen d7 now. Here, Tubbo had a couple mates. He had queen to h4. This was mate. He also had rook to h1. It was also checkmate. And he also had this nice g4 move, which is checkmate like this. There you go. Those are all the squares. But instead, we have queen to d7 from Tubbo, looking to promote this pawn. And we have queen to g5 from CodeMiko, e7 from Tubbo, queen takes e5 from CodeMiko. I think she missed that this rook was defending the knight. But Tubbo did not miss it. He does take that queen. Rook takes e5 check. And after king to h6 and queen to e8, or e8 equals queen, here Miko flagged because I think what happened is her king had no moves. So the king is stalemated here. The king has no legal moves. And she forgot that she had an a pawn that she could move. And with only 18 seconds left, here CodeMiko flagged. But this would have been a mate in one. I mean, really, like, I can't even imagine a stalemate here because Tubbo just has so many mate in ones after a move like a6. Yeah, but either way, Tubbo does take this game. He takes the first game. CodeMiko will have to win the second game in order to bring us to a tiebreaker match, or tiebreaker game in the match. And yeah, I mean, this was a good game. Very wild game. Very entertaining game, and we'll see what happens in game 2. But yeah, I don't think I have anything else to say about this game, so thank you for watching. I love you guys. Stay awesome. Check out my PogChamps 3 playlist up there, and the next game in the match on the left side of the screen. I'll see you next time.